Good afternoon and welcome to a live edition of Facebook Live, our opportunity, of course it's Fight Live, of Facebook Live hosted by WorkBC. My name is Christian St. Cyr. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for WorkBC in the Abbotsford and Mission catchments. But I know that we're talking to people from all around British Columbia. And WorkBC in Abbotsford Mission is also partnered with WorkBC in Victoria and in Nanaimo, in the South Okanagan, in Oliver, Summerland, Penticton, and in Princeton. So wherever you're joining us in British Columbia, I just want to say welcome. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge that we are broadcasting today in the Esquimalt, the Songhees, the Wisniak, the Sunamak, the Stalo, and the Sailks First Okanagan Nations. And we are demonstrating our respect for these nations by committing ourselves to the process of truth and reconciliation. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today. One of the things we're talking about today is supports that we offer through WorkBC for single parents. In the WorkBC program, we have something called the Single Parent Employment Initiative, which is called SPE, and it's a series of financial supports to assist with training and other costs of going back to school for single parents and how we can support that process. And I am so thrilled today to be joined by Tabitha. Tabitha is a former client of ours. She worked with a case manager, or what we call a WorkBC service specialist in Mission. And she's going to share a little bit about her insights, and I'll talk a little bit more about the WorkBC supports that we have. So welcome, Tabitha.
Hello, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you have a lot on the go, and so I really do appreciate you taking the time today to speak with us.
Of course.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your experience working with WorkBC? What did that look like?
Yeah, so when I decided to go to WorkBC and take the single parents program, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. And I was kind of on the fence, bouncing back and forth. I knew I needed to go back to school, and they really helped you dig into what you like and what you are interested in, and then take that and grasp into tests and different courses with other people and different resources to find what has sparked an interest in your eye for a career in the long run.
You know what, you've put that so well, because I think a lot of times people have done a bunch of different work in the past, and they're like, well, that's what I do. I don't really have a choice. I know there's no other options. And the great thing is there's a lot of jobs going unfilled right now in the Fraser Valley, but all throughout British Columbia and Canada. And so I think this is a great opportunity for people who find themselves at a crossroads in their career to do a little bit of that digging and say, okay, well, what could I do that is different, that is more financially rewarding, that offers me a better quality of life, that gives me more options. Now, as
Yes.
I understand, you took training in early childhood education. Tell me a little bit about how you chose that and what you did.
Yeah, so I have 3 boys, so I know that I'm good with children, and that's a fact. And then, through WorkBC, there was workshops that we did, and it helped dig into what your interests were. So one of them was like a PE teacher. Another one was, I don't really remember. There's a couple different things along that line, and
Mhm.
everything, all the tests that we did, all popped up as early childhood educator, and it
Yeah.
just made sense that that's something that I would want to do as a career, not just a job. I really found that it helped you find your career and not like just a typical job that you would do any day. So yeah, I really love it. Now I'm a supervisor of the center that I'm at. I've gotten raises since leaving WorkBC, getting hired. It just really set me off to skyrocket.
It's interesting because so often, like when we're helping people develop an action plan, we have the job in mind. But what happens is we can't really sort of account for how things will change. And I think that when you identify the pieces of you that are special, that are gifts of yours, and that if you work with them, that you can really grow as a person, as an employee. And it sounds like that's been an exciting process for you.
Yes, that was really good. I really like that we helped with my resume building, with my
Mm.
cover letter building, and making connections. Like in some of the workshops, there was multiple people doing the program. So you were able to make those connections with those people that were kind of in the exact same space as you. So you have that to relate, so you can make that connection. And then they
Yeah.
will say something that you're like, oh yeah, I would like to do that too, or I could do that too. And it kind of just bounces and sparks that conversation instead of just sitting there and looking at Indeed and trying to find a job that you're going to pick, you know?
Yeah. I just out of curiosity, I feel like there's a large part of job search is confidence. Like, our jobs are part of who we are. We find ourselves unemployed for a period of time. It starts kind of eating away at you because we talk. It's one of the first things a person will ask you when they meet you is, well, what do you do? Uh,
Mm.
and I would say conversely, like when you start focusing on the things that you're good at, it's a real confidence builder. And so when you talk about people who are maybe in the same spot as you, who are doing the workshops and things like that, that it is like it's a helpful process to be able to identify what you're good at.
Yeah, and then they can think of things that you're not typically thinking of, and then you can bounce back and forth. I feel like it's all about conversation to try
Mhm.
to figure out how to make growth, and then also just doing it. Like I was, of course, very scared to go to the Single Parents Initiative program. I don't think I
Mm.
should say scared, but nervous. Like you're
Yeah.
putting yourself out there. You're having to go into workshops with other people, so they're gonna see your face. And if you, after COVID and all of that, everyone's
Mm.
struggling with that type of thing. So it is very nerve wracking. But then once you do it and those connections, it's so fulfilling.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And in a way, I always feel like it's important in the work that we do in career development to not label people like
Mhm.
as being a single parent or having a disability or being an immigrant or indigenous, because the truth is they're just people. We're all just people trying to get through. Now, we have different funding that we can make available to people based on their circumstances, but we don't really want to label them beyond that. Like we want to make sure that they get the maximum of what's available to them.
Yeah, because everyone has bumps in the road, I find, and so, mhm.
Uh, considering that youth and mature workers are two what we call groups that have a tougher time in the labor market, everyone spends some time in their life facing barriers to employment.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
you mentioned you have three boys. How old are they?
11, 7, and 4.
Oh, wow. So you have your hands full.
Yes, oldest is going to middle school, which is crazy.
Yeah. But the last one's going to go into kindergarten this year or next year?
This year coming up, he's going to
Okay.
kindergarten.
Well, that
Mhm.
must be exciting.
Yeah, and they all go to the daycare that I work at, so it's worked out
Wonderful.
perfectly. I can drop, and the daycare is in the school that my oldest goes to, so I'm
Yeah.
dropping them all off there, working there. If they forget of their jacket, I can run to my car and grab it, or they want more food, I have pizza pockets stacked in the fridge of my room, things like that.
Wow. How do they feel about mom being in their environment?
They like it, but I said to my oldest one when I first started working, "Hi, babe," on the field, and I was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry. Hey, dude."
Yeah. My youngest wants my his mom to be at school for like lunchtime monitoring, and I'm like, she's gonna kiss you, that. That's what's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
enjoy it while you can.
So how old were they when you started this process?
That's a good question. It was right before 2020,
Okay.
so 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, and so your youngest would have been pretty young at the time too.
Yes, yes, he was. But he went into daycare at the daycare that I wanted to work at. I knew that I
Mhm.
wanted to work there. My middle child went to preschool there, so I already made connections and really kind of saw how the daycare was operated, and I kind of knew that I could do that, but I wasn't exactly sure. Yeah.
When you went through the Work BC process, was there funding available to help pay for the daycare?
Yes, there was that. They paid for the first full year after getting my job for my daycare services, which
Yeah.
was amazing trying to like lock in a stable career when you don't exactly know what is going to happen. And that just ended. So now I'm on my own,
Yeah.
but it was amazing.
Well, fortunately, we're moving towards $10 a day childcare too, which I know that childcare, like there's a huge underrepresentation of women in the labor market. Women are the primary caregivers for kids in many families. And it's just the availability of childcare and making it affordable. And so those two things make a big difference. And I think that's one of the things that really we call it a single parent employment initiative. We call it SPE. But I think one of the things that makes SPE stand out is it helps people overcome this particular challenge, because I think that's a large part that makes single parents go, you know, I'm not even going to try. I can't afford it. I can't afford to go to school. I can't afford if I got a job, I couldn't afford to put my kids in childcare during the
Yeah.
days.
A lot of people say that, and I think my story. So when I became a single mother, I wasn't working any. I was working prior, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. So I literally had every wall against me. Like I went into a rental with not even having a stable career. So you can imagine everything. And you use the funding and you use the supports and the people that are willing to help, like Work BC, for example, and grasp onto it. It's not a negative thing. It's there for a reason. It can help you grow and flourish tremendously, I find. And
Yeah.
so people do say that a lot, even to me. And so I've done a lot of talks and things like that, and on CTV News and other things to say that you can do it. Like if you just reach out, it's hard work, of course. Like the workshops can be hard. Digging into what you're interested in could be hard. Applying for jobs. Another thing that we had to do with Works PC was contact other early childhood educators and find how much they're making an hour, researching if you can, if that will be maintain your life and things like that. And that can all be intimidating, but just push, because you can do it, and use those supports that are available, because they are there.
You know, you touched on a really great support, which is sort of a process, which is the research you do ahead of time. And I
Mhm.
know that I've been doing this for a long time, and we don't want somebody to commit to funding for training that's not going to benefit them in the long term. And it isn't just about, you know, saving our money or using our money as wisely as possible. We don't want to end someone up in a career that they're not going to be successful in, or that they're going to be unhappy in. And so we want people to do the research as much to identify that this is a good occupation as to say, okay, well, this is going to be a great pathway for you. What did you learn in your education process, like in your research process before doing training?
So for early childhood education, specifically, I learned that we have a $4 an hour top up. So
Hmm.
the government tops up every early childhood educator once you're fully certified. So you can't be an assistant, you can't be a registered responsible adult. You have to actually be an ECE, and they top up your wage $4 an hour. So every month you get a larger check. So that was huge. Based on just a primary ECE wage, I was like, I don't know, it'll be borderline. I'll still be doing paycheck to paycheck, but with that extra support that I learned, I can manage it.
You know what? I think so few people are aware of that. Like people who would consider a job in early childhood education is that $4 an hour top up,
Mm-hmm.
because again, it's childcare facilities are struggling to find staff right now, and the idea can't be to continue to charge people more for childcare, because it sort of defeats the process of it. And so I've never seen this in any other industry where the government steps in for one particular job and says, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, we're going to top up your wage by another $4 on top of what you're getting from your employer.
Yes, and it's huge. $4 is, it used to be two. I think it was in September when they changed it to the
Mhm.
$4 an hour. So that was recent. And also when you become an early childhood educator in most centers, they will give your children a discount if you are working there. So there are like these little things that you learn as you work with Work BC and really research that career that you want.
Yeah. You know, I think that's terrific. Where did you go to school, and how long did it take?
I went to Vancouver Career College. It was approximately a year, I want to say. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Mom brain. And it was half days, so it still worked out good. I could still get my kids; they didn't have to go to full days of daycare. I could still do my work BC, and everything worked out perfectly.
So what did that training look like? Was there work placement, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was kind of a while ago, so I'm a little bit
Okay.
foggy.
Right. These are
Um,
COVID years too, which are like 5 times as long as any normal year.
yeah, exactly. And everything seems more intense and more, yeah, it was a lot. At first, with you could feel like the paperwork is a lot, but just do it. Like you
Mhm.
need to, I feel like you can get intimidated when you see all the different sheets and everything, but it's worth it. Like you
Yeah.
can get your career. I did have that because, of course, everyone gets a little bit when they start something new. And
Yeah.
that did happen at first with me with paperwork because I'm an ECE, not an office girl. So I'm not into the paperwork situation.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it worked. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's wonderful. Were there now? So we were able to, like, through WorkBC, we were able to pay for the training, and I assume all like the things that you needed to do the training. And we give you some provided with some childcare option as well, like funding. Were there any other financial supports that you were able to get through WorkBC that really assisted with the process?
Yeah, well, they can assist with counseling services as well. So they
Hmm.
can help you with your mental stability because it can be extremely overpowering. I was close enough to my work and my school that I didn't need transportation funding, but that was available. So
Yeah.
if you are farther away from your job, because you have to travel a lot into Vancouver and things like that, I was just fortunate that it was close, that you could get funding for transportation as well. So you put in your kilometers, you got to research it, it has to be legit, and then they can help you with your gas cards and all of that type of stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did you
Mhm.
find that other students in your program were in a similar situation in
Yes.
terms of being parents and trying to manage the two things?
Yes, I did. And there was a lady going for her EA, which is quite similar to ECE. And then there was also people from all walks of life, which is super cool to connect that way. And yeah, I think there was a one gentleman that was in a career for like 40 years, and then he wasn't anymore. Now he's switching it up. It wasn't just like just me, it was all different types, which really helps you do your research and figure out what you like.
Well, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
So you finished the program, and you already had your sons in the where you're working right now.
Mhm.
Was there ever a question of where you would end up working, or was that always your goal?
That was always my goal, but I did have so in my college, you have to do your practicums at different locations, different centers. So I was offered different careers at different centers during my
Mhm.
practicum. So I did have that option, but of course, I wanted to go where my kids were. It was closer, and I got the discount for them to
Yeah,
go to daycare there. So it just made sense to do that. But yeah, I had a lot of different options through my practicum.
and you live out in Mission, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you find like everything's close for you? Like where you're working, is it relatively close to your home?
Yeah, it's about 15 to 20 minutes, so it's not bad at all. And I recently I was on my way to owning a home with Habitat for Humanity. So I'm central in Mission, and I am doing that as well. So it kind of just all snowballed and came together. When if you really push yourself, everything will come together. I promise you. I always preach that to everybody.
You have a wonderful attitude, by the way. Like
Thank you.
you're a great ambassador for people for this sort of like self improvement.
Thank
Uh,
you. Yes.
can I ask you? So you were featured on CTV News as relating to Habitat for Humanity. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so I am on my way to owning a home with Habitat for Humanity. So if people don't know what Habitat for Humanity is, it provides safe housing for families that are like the middle class. So you make a certain amount of money and you are just can't grasp owning a house because it's crazy in BC sometimes to own a house if you don't have your foot in the door. So
Yeah.
after Work BC, I got my career and then I applied for Habitat for Humanity, went through that whole process, and now I volunteer with them. So I have over 250 hours with them, and I have a beautiful townhouse that the boys love.
Mm.
And yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is wonderful. Because again, I think when we hear about Habitat for Humanity, we're thinking about the United States. And again, you don't sort of see it really happening here. How many units did they build in your complex?
I think we have 18 here, and they are just about to start on a 42 unit build in Coquitlam. So yeah, it's life changing. You have to, of course, do your work. You have to volunteer with their company. Me, for example, I went and spoke on CTV News and shared a little bit of my story. You have to do all of the nitty gritty, but it's worth it. It's really worth it. They help so many people of all walks of life because it's very hard to own a home nowadays.
Oh, I mean, just the phrase, I'm on my way to owning my own home,
Mhm.
is not something that you hear a lot of people say in Metro Vancouver these days, especially when you have house prices, even in Mission and Abbotsford, upwards
Yeah.
of 800,000, $1 million.
Yeah.
That's incredible. How did that link get made for you?
While I was in my practicum, actually,
Mhm.
one of the girls, her name is Tabitha as well. She has a home in the first phases of Mission at Habitat for Humanity. And so she
Oh,
told
okay.
me to apply. And so I applied. I didn't hear back because I was in my practicum. And at that
Mhm.
time, you need to be working full time to be with Habitat for Humanity because you are essentially paying your mortgage. So you're paying an amount that is the exact same as a mortgage. And so I didn't hear back. And then I did another email and I bugged her. And the head of Habitat called me and we hopped on a FaceTime and it just kind of snowballed that way. They have hundreds of supports like Home Depot that donate all of their building supplies. So everything's donated and all the donations goes 100% to Habitat for Humanity of Greater Vancouver.
I don't want you to reveal too much personal information, but I presume your mortgage would be smaller than what you might expect if you're just doing a market purchase in Mission.
Yeah, 30% of your income.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and then they
Um,
adjust it. So if you have any hiccups in the road, you just have to really work with Habitat and they will adjust it to help you because they want you to grow and they want your family to grow as well. And they offer workshops as well, just like WorkBC offering all different types of workshops and support to learn to grow. They do that as well. So both organizations are so powerful. So if anyone sees these organizations, grasp onto them.
I'm just going to throw this out to our producer, Michelle, to say maybe we can throw in the link for Habitat for Humanity Canada into the chat, just in case
Yes,
anybody's really curious about it, because it does seem like a wonderful opportunity.
it is. It
Um,
is.
oh, and she says she already did, because she's very
Perfect.
resourceful. It seems like you need to be very focused and strong. Like I've known and I respect a number of people in my life who've been single parents, but it can be very isolating, from what I understand as well. And so, what keeps you going? Like, where do you find your strength?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, some days are very hard. You
Yeah,
know, some days is it good to just cry. Some days it is good to just feel down and, recognize your feelings, but also if you have family or friends to reach out to them and just keep pushing. There's so many hiccups, but where I am today shows me that all of those hiccups happen for a reason. And if you just keep pushing, you can do it. You have to be really strong. You have to like keep pushing yourself when you don't want to do it anymore. But just do it. I promise. Just do it. If you feel nervous and scared, just do it.
you know what? I think that's great advice, and I think that's something we try to share with our clients all the time. You've accomplished so much, and you're in a great place in your life. Do you see this changing? Like, do you feel like you'd want to open your own daycare or something like that one day? Where do you see your life going from this place?
I think maybe I definitely could. I don't like putting like a final destination on it. I like just living in the moment and really experiencing that time because if you start thinking so far ahead, your thoughts can go completely overpowering. You can be
Yeah.
overwhelmed, and overwhelming is a huge feeling for everybody, especially during COVID and after COVID. So I'm not honestly too sure. I like where it's going right now, and I just if an opportunity comes, like being here to talk to you today, I'm going to
Mm.
jump on it and you never know what can happen. Or CTV News, I just jumped on it and just experiencing every day to day because that's all you can do is experience the present time right now.
I'm curious when you had the sort of um you had the idea of, okay, I want to do this. You discovered what this is, which is early childhood education. You did the training and then you ended up in the job and now you're in a new job. Um were there things that surprised you along the way? We're like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, well, for career wise, I wanted to be a supervisor of a 3 to 5 program. So that's 3 to 5 year olds. And that was what I thought when I was going through my training, was what I thought when I was going through college. But now I'm a supervisor of an infant program. So they're babies, they're really, really tiny. They can be
Yeah.
from newborn all the way up to 18 months. And how it just changed and how that was my groove. You know, you can have something in mind. I also made a dream board. So I made a dream board when I first started and I put it up in my room. And I actually just took it down because I hit every single thing on it.
Wow,
Everything has
that's
come
incredible.
true. Yeah, I put 3 to 5 supervisor though, but I'm infant, so that's a little bit off, but it's still up there. But yeah, I did that during WorkBC time actually, and we did it with WorkBC, and yeah, everything came true on it.
Did a facilitator suggest creating the dream board?
Yeah, and we did it on our computers, and we all showed them together, and it was super cool. It was in one of our workshops.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
Is it that you think, oh, I connect more with newborns or babies, or is it I'd like to do the 3 to 5, but really the best opportunity for me right now is among newborns?
Honestly, I have a 4-year-old, so being with 4-year-olds all day and then at home is
Yeah,
stressful.
I
So,
can imagine.
yeah, so babies, they cuddle you, love you.
Okay, I totally get that, but I've got teenagers too, so. Uh,
Yeah,
um, uh, so that was the piece that surprised you in terms of it didn't work out that way. What do you
yeah.
think has been the most challenging part of your work
Like of an early childhood educator?
as an early childhood educator or as a supervisor?
Yeah, challenging would probably just be longer days, being away from your kids, only seeing them in the hallways, not being a stay-at-home mom with your children and having to teach them. That
Mhm.
is probably the hardest. I do 10-hour days too, so it can be a little bit tricky that way. But then they get to do fun things, and we get to go to the amusement park that's in town this weekend because mommy worked hard to get her money and things like
Mhm.
that. So you just have to really try to see the good in it, and also show them, like, my boys have watched me not having a job, to going through WorkBC, to going through college, to becoming a supervisor at their program, just watching me teach. So hopefully that will instill in their brains, and then they will be hard workers and they can do whatever they want. College is so overwhelming and so scary, especially when you don't have a career or someone helping you. So
Mhm.
having that support through WorkBC is tremendous.
Having kids who are 4 through 11 years old, the fact that you can make them aware that there's a correlation between, oh, well, mommy has to work, but we have a nice place to live. We get to go to the amusement park, whatever those things are. I think that's an important lesson for kids to take.
Yeah, exactly. And then they know that if they work hard, they can do those things too.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm just leaving them at school. I'm gonna go help this baby today is really sad, and I need to go help him. I sometimes sneak over to Sawyer, my youngest class, and he'll say, "Mommy, come here. Can you sit with me?" And I'm like, "The babies need me. They have stinky bums. I gotta go." And then you're like, "Okay." And so, like, just like throwing cute little things like that, then they are like, "Okay, I get it. Like, it's all good."
Oh, that's great.
Mhm.
There's going to be single parents who are watching this. There's going to be our staff. Like, we're working with people all the time, and I know that there's fear and anxiety, and I think that your message of just push through it is great advice. Is there anything practical that you think that really people should think about? Like, the dream board seemed like a great idea, but is there anything that you came across that you're like, oh, you know what, this was really helpful for me in that situation?
Um, As a whole, I would say just take it step by step. Don't
Yeah.
think too far ahead. Of course, you have to think of your career, so that's far ahead, but don't keep going. Just go slowly but surely. And if you're feeling overwhelmed in that day, take the day. Do
Yeah.
something. If you want to go for a walk in nature, do that. Spend time. I'm really big on self-care and doing that. I think that also helps with your balance for your mental health, because mental health is so important nowadays and always has been, and so strong. So really having that time to sit and be still with yourself and doing things that you enjoy while doing your other stuff. It's all about balance, which can be obviously very hard. But if you feel overwhelmed, turn off the computer, stop doing your workshop, and go and walk out in nature, and then come back to it, and you'll feel so much refreshed. I think that is a huge thing. I see people working so hard through college, busting their butts, doing all of this stuff, and which is good. You need to do that, but
Mhm.
also think about yourself too.
You know what? That is really great advice. In fact, I read an article the other day. There was some research that was done that said we're way more productive if we take breaks.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take a break, you get worn down more and more. You don't think as clearly. You don't work quite as hard. But if you
Mhm.
just take a little refreshing break on a regular basis, you could be a lot more productive, get a lot more done.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I work so I a typical work day in EC is 9 hours. I do 10 hours, so I get the Wednesday off. So it works out perfectly. So then the Wednesday I can clean the house or not clean and go for a walk or,
Yeah.
go grocery shopping without screaming children at me asking for every chocolate bar in every aisle, things like that.
So working for tens, you're seeing parents as they're dropping kids off as well as when they're picking them up.
Yes, yeah, I see them both. Actually, I had a mom yesterday ask me that she's like, "You're here very long days," and I said, "Yeah, but I'm off on Wednesdays, so it works out perfectly."
That seems to be the trend that I read about a lot these days. We kind of went through the pandemic, and a lot of it was about hybrid employment, people working from home. Obviously, that's not something that's possible within the work that you do.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a lot more talk of the 4-day work week. How do you like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's way nicer. I only ever work 2 days in a row having the Wednesday off, so it's kind of cool to thank you. It's my Friday on Tuesday, and then it's my Friday again on Friday. And then yeah, it's an extra hour, so that's not that big of a deal. Sometimes it can be hard for the boys at nighttime, but you just got to be prepared. Make sure you have the spaghetti ready to go when you get home,
Yeah.
things like that. But almost our whole center does it. Everybody at ours
Oh, that's
does it.
great. Well,
Hmm.
and it also gives you, like, as a parent, you're on all the time. So you're
Hmm.
Monday, most parents, you're Monday to Friday, you're work, work, work. Then you got dinner and homework and get to bed and get up and let's get ready. And it starts all over again. And then
Hmm.
you have that on the weekend too. So you actually have a day. Oh, I can go shopping. Oh, I can do some self-care in the middle of the week.
Yes, yes, and they can still go to school, and I can just, it's sometimes, and as a mother and father, sometimes when you're at home, you like to just clean your house without the kids destroying it while you do it. So that even can be therapeutic, like, things like that. It's, you take for granted, and then you feel good, and then the next day you're ready to go for work again.
Hmm. Now,
Hmm.
you started this process just before 2000, I gather?
Yes.
Yeah. So were you actually in training when the pandemic broke out?
Um, yes, it was during the pandemic. All of it was during the pandemic. Everything. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Um, by the way, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them to the chat tab. If you have a question about WorkBC or if you have a question about Tabitha's experience, please feel free to put it in. Um, Obviously, so you've gone through a long process to this point, like, because I think the process is still continuing.
Yes.
What have you learned about yourself that you didn't know 4 or 5 years ago?
That I don't let anything stop me.
Yeah.
That I can do it, that I can do it on my own. That's probably the biggest thing, that I've learned, that when I'm nervous, I would sometimes when you're nervous, you kind of like shuttle in and you don't do it. But that's the part where I know to just like keep doing it. And I always say, fake it till you make it. I always tell people that. It's such a
Yeah.
funny quote, but it's so true. Like if you feel like you can't do it, wing it and do
Yeah.
it, and you can really do it.
So often, I mean, when I've managed staff and things like that, people are so quick to say, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready. I don't know if I can do that." And the truth is, like, fake it till you make it is great advice because
Mhm.
it really is. Have confidence in yourself. You can do this. We
Mhm.
wouldn't give you this opportunity unless we thought that you could do it.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest differences people can make in themselves is to feel confident, to know that they can do it.
And
Um,
even if you don't, even if you mess up, that's okay too. Even if, you fail at something or you faked it and you didn't make it, try again later, like it's not, we're all human. And I just want everyone to know that that's totally okay to do that.
yeah. I'm curious because you've chosen a very challenging area of field of expertise. And I think it's as important to know what we're good at, to know what wouldn't be a good fit. I think quite often people have misconceptions about what jobs look like,
Mm.
what they really look like on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm curious, in your job, who wouldn't be good at ECE? Um, like somebody who might be thinking about it.
Mhm.
My wife often tells me that she wouldn't be very good at this, and
Yeah.
she loves our kids,
Mhm.
but it's other people's kids. It's an entirely different situation.
Yeah,
So
I was actually having this conversation with someone recently, and he works a really hard job. And I was saying, like, your job is way harder than mine. And he was like, well, yours is extremely mentally challenging.
mm,
And then that sparked a conversation with the girls at work actually recently. It's funny how we're talking about this now, that it's mentally very challenging. So you have to have
yeah,
a lot of patience, especially right now, because all of the children that are in daycare are from 2020 ish. So we're dealing with COVID children. I don't like to say
yeah,
that, but like during that pandemic. So, the behaviors and things like that, and they're not used to like going out, and also their parents are all stressed out. We were all stressed out. No one knew what was happening. So having all that, you need to really be patient. If you're not patient, don't bother doing it. And you're on your feet all day long. So if you're active, do it. If you're not active, don't do it.
by the way, we have a couple of different comments that people have put in. One is the idea totally can relate to needing a me day. And I think that honestly, that's the big thing about the 4 days. It's not that there's a huge difference between 4 days and 5 days. It's that we don't really have another day of the week where there isn't like kids and work. It just goes on and on and on. But we had another comment that says, thank you for Tabitha for being an ECE. I appreciate my kids' child's daycare so much because I know the fact that I couldn't do it makes it takes us that I couldn't do it takes a strong person to do that work. So that's amazing. You strike me as an introvert, but I don't like to label people as what they are. Did you do any of that when you were doing your testing to see what if you're an introvert or extrovert, that sort of thing?
Yeah, both. So if I'm put in situations, I'll be an extrovert and I'll talk my face off. But if
Yeah.
I'm not put in the situation, I'll stay at home and like read my books and stay. That was actually, I totally forgot about that. That was a really good workshop with
Mhm.
WorkBC. I really like that to really find out your personality. That
Mhm.
totally slipped my mind. Yes, but for myself, if I'm put in the situation, I won't stop talking. That's why parents love me at my daycare. They get a full rundown of their kid's day and they're like, hey, I'm just trying to go home, lady. And I'm like, he did this, he did that, la, la, la. Then I get home and I'm like, oh, it's high.
Yeah, and honestly, like most people are in the middle. Like there's very few extreme extroverts, extreme introverts. Most
Mhm,
people fall in the middle where they need pieces of both.
mhm,
I know I'm an introvert, and yet similar to you, if I'm in the right circumstances, blah blah blah, and I'll go on and on and on.
mhm.
But if I spend my entire day with people, I'm exhausted
Yes, me too.
because the introverted part of me recharges when I get a little bit of time to myself. Just like you take an extrovert, you stick them in an empty room for a day, and they're going to feel exhausted and recharged by spending time with friends and family and things like that.
Yes, yes, that really helped me find my career as well because I could have that balance of going home and not having to talk to everybody, and things like that. I really like that. Yes.
I often would say to people when I talk about sort of career planning that at the core of all of us is three things: our values, our temperament, which is really sort of who we were built to be. Like you can look at things in family members and go, oh, yeah, I got that. It's that quick temper, or it's the, needing to plan things down to the last detail. We can see these things in people that we grew up with, and we're like, oh, yeah, that's part of who we are. But then there's also personality, and personality is shaped by every person you ever met, everything you've ever done. It
Mhm,
it shapes who you are, and it's really personality in many ways. Where you have a person who's sort of a natural introvert, but they're
mhm.
in these environments where they have to communicate, that it really draws out that tendency in them, and vice versa, where you have people who are a real extrovert, but there's just not a lot of opportunity to connect, so they are become more comfortable with processing on their own. But I always say to people when your temperament, your personality, and your values are not in harmony with your work, that's where people are really miserable. And I
Mhm.
and I think about there is a portion like 20, 50, 20 or 15 or 20% of everybody is really miserable at their work. They go to work, they're unhappy, they resent their work, they go home. And it's usually because their work isn't a good fit with who they are or what
Mhm.
they consider to be important.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. And I found that for me, for the introvert and extrovert thing, I worked the women's show that happens in Abbotsford.
Mhm.
And I talked all day and I did so great. But like you said, I was exhausted after. And, I did, but that sparked confidence in me, knowing that I did so great. And I also made a connection with someone from Habitat for Humanity, which snowballed into the CTV. So those things, you really start finding what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Yeah, because people just pick whatever career pops up on Indeed and something that will help pay the bills. But it's really about how you're feeling. If you're feeling really good about going and doing it, it makes it so much better.
We have another thought here. So this is a comment. I don't know if I'm supposed to attribute it, but I'll say the comment. I'm also starting a summer camp called to make sure this isn't a joke. Yes, I'm also considering a summer camp called Camp Say, which will give parents a week of free respite and kids with diverse abilities a week or whatever they can to manage or whatever they can manage of a time frame of camping with diverse peers. I love that idea of a week-long camp to give parents a break in the middle of the summertime.
Yeah, I really, really like that too. That's amazing because you need it. You need, as we were talking about, you need to focus on yourself so you can flourish as well.
I think so much is changing in terms of like we know that it's like they say that it takes a village to raise children. I think we recognize that it's not just it's childcare. You just stuff your kids into childcare. That it's education. Like they
Mhm.
are developing as human beings. Even the
Yeah.
small babies, all the way up to the 12 and 13-year-olds. And so the idea is to support kids, support parents in this. And so I think that idea of Camp Say is a great idea. I had read and shared with my colleagues recently about a group of women in Vancouver who've set up a co-working space. And so the
Mm.
idea is that women entrepreneurs come in, they're able to work on their business, make telephone calls, have meetings, and there are ECE professionals on site who have a curriculum for the kids. So the parents are on site, the kids are on site, but the parents have that freedom to be able to do their work. Because I know that when our kids are home, quite often you're trying to get work done, but your kids
Yeah.
also are needing attention
Yeah.
and don't want to be ignored and things like that. And you don't want nobody wants to ignore their kids. But there's also things that need to get done. So I think we're living in a much more challenging world.
Yes, yes, I agree. And finding those things like you just learned about is all about conversation. And when you find them, like grasp onto it and try to do it.
Yeah. Uh, is there anything else that you think that is really important for people to know about your SPE experience or just SPE generally?
If you qualify, I feel like definitely do it. Don't
Yeah.
be nervous. If you are nervous, that's okay too. Just do it. I just for myself, I literally did not have a career. I was, had 3 children in British Columbia, which is very expensive. Um, and yeah, just in small steps, I think just small steps. Don't look at the very top of the hill. Just slowly do it.
Yeah, no, that's terrific and inspiring. I just want to thank you. First of all, you should be tremendously proud of what
Thank
you have
you.
accomplished, and your sons have a tremendous reason to be proud of their mama as well. I
Thank you.
want to thank you for getting out there, not only because of all that you've done, but that you recognize a need to be able to share this message with other people. So, Tabitha, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions, Michelle has input our website. If you are curious about WorkBC, it's just apply.workbc.ca. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tabitha.